Today on the guest list, we're talking to the cast of The L Word.
Well, Ari, then we'll start with you. For people who have been living under a rock and never saw the original L Word or the L Word Generation Q, how do you describe it to people?
How do I describe the L Word Generation Q? A very a fun, I call it like a lesbian entourage of sorts, like kind of like the friend dynamic and relationships in Los Angeles. None of us are actors, but everything else is very entourage-like to me, but through a queer lens.
I love that answer. That's great. Jacqueline, and feel free, obviously, all you guys can hop in at any point in time. I'm just going to go from one to the next. Jacqueline, fans of the series, what can we look forward to with season 3?
I think we get to explore, our relationships as they've evolved. You can kind of jump in at any point, but there's, we get like a little bit deeper. People start to sort of grow up and make decisions in their lives. And we also have some great guest stars who just make you want more and more and more.
Terrific. I can't wait. Rosanny, the L Word first debuted in 2004. It was obviously incredibly groundbreaking at the time. What do you think about the legacy of that show and now yours, continuing the torch?
Yeah, I think the legacy of L Word, it really was one of the first times that we got to see everything through a queer lens, like Ari was saying. It was such a big moment in television too. And, I talk about my experience watching it for the first time when I was in high school and how it kind of just opens up your eyes and you're just like, wow, I don't think I've ever seen anything like this on television. And seeing actresses like that really break ground and just go running towards the finish line of like, we're going to do this, like, we're going to tell this story. I think that's so amazing that we all got to experience that. And I think now for Gen Q cast, I think it's so awesome that we get to be part of that history. So it's really exciting and I love being part of it.
Yeah. And to be able to work with those actors, like from the original series, we all watched it growing up and then you're there and it feels, especially first season, but even now you have moments of like, oh my gosh, like I'm here. You kind of have to pinch yourself and to be able to be part of it, just like Ro was saying, is you feel like you're in the Truman Show sometimes, in a good way though.
Yeah.
That's a great answer. Ari, talk about the fan base for your show, because someone who hasn't seen it might think it's only for people in the LGBTQ community, but that's far from the case.
Yeah, I think especially now, like seasons 2 and now 3, we've added even more to the melting pot, more inclusion, more voices. And I think that now more than ever, I think there's a place for everyone to identify. Like I think so many different stories are being told and the inclusion is just getting bigger and bigger.
And it also feels like, although these are like queer people experiencing these things, it feels very universal. A lot of the storylines, especially relationship wise, I think for Ro and I's characters, we're exploring some themes this season that, of potentially like codependency and things like that I think it's like a safe place for all people to come to learn about. And maybe not learn about, but to see themselves on screen and some of the dynamics that they're experiencing in their own lives.
Yeah, I love that. Rosanny.
Also, sorry, one more thing that I want to add on. A lot of queer representation in the past was like these coming out stories or, taboo and not really just like the daily ins and outs of any regular relationship, specifically queer relationships. But like Jack was saying, that's kind of what we're doing here is like, it touches on things that relate to any sort of relationship, queer or not.
It's also just one more thing.
Please, I'll be silent. You guys just tell me when you're done.
We're an easy interview. We just like to talk to each other. I think it also, so much of our fan base is straight women, because I think it's such a safe place for people to come. I don't know why, but that's like my experience of it. So it really is for all people experiencing, anything. Straight people, queer people,
I have one more thing, actually. I'm just kidding.
I was waiting. Rosanny, talk about the universal themes that are in this show, and if there are particular takeaways that you want straight people, gay people, anybody watching this show to come away knowing.
Wow, some universal themes. I think, yeah, we've talked about it. We've touched on it a little bit, but love, and there's also sibling dynamics and work, and what it means to balance work and your love life. And then at the same time, I think there's a big theme in this show about doing what you think is right versus doing what will make you happy as an individual and a person living your life. I think that's a big conversation that we have on this show, and knowing that whatever choice you make, it's going to lead you down a path where you're going to have to make a decision one day about what you've done. So it's really cool to see these characters work through that problem and find out who they are and how they love and who they love. So I think it's going to be really interesting to watch.
Love
that was
it.
a great point, Ro.
Yeah, that was really good.
Well done. Well done. Ari, there is so much in this show about identity, discovering your identity, questioning your identity. If people watching are in that kind of stage where they're like, what kind of a person am I? What kind of person do I love? What kind of person do I want to be? What advice would you give to viewers like that?
Oh. I think the advice I would give is that no one story is the same. I mean, there can be similarities from one story to the next that can be unifying in a very positive way. But I think what's really important is to know that you don't have to match somebody else's story. Your story can be completely different, and that doesn't make it any less valuable or special or unique to you. Like it's your story. So don't let anybody else's story dictate yours, and give yourself the space and just explore.
I love that. Wonderful answer. And Jacqueline, a lot of people have this kind of mistaken misconception that sexuality is kind of black and white. You're either straight or you're gay. But one thing I love about this series is it dives into that it's a far bigger spectrum than that. Talk about that idea, what you've seen about that on the series and in real life and everything in between.
Yeah, I think, sexuality is fluid, and I think we're all learning all of the time. But it kind of comes down to sort of piggybacking off what Ro was saying earlier about doing what makes you happy and being true to yourself, works across sexuality, obviously, but also all the storylines that are happening during the show. And yeah, just giving yourself space, like Ari said, and you see it in many ways on our show. Yeah.
I love it. Final question, and any of you can chime in as always. Besides the L Word Generation Q, is there a show or a movie that you guys have seen and loved that really represents the LGBTQ community in a positive light or is done really well?
I think Mae Martin's show felt really truthful to me. Feel Good, and also Heartstopper. If you haven't seen Heartstopper, I think what it did so well, it's like a teen drama, and I'm sitting there bawling my eyes out because I think it really rang true for me in the anxiety around coming out and trying to figure out who you are and how scary that can be. Yeah, I just loved it. I thought both those kids were so good, and the stories they were telling as a whole were great.
I need to see that.
Wonderful. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. Enjoy the next interview. I'm sure it won't be nearly as fun as this one, but
It won't.
It won't.